So when we're talking about listening skills, one of the biggest things you can do is actually listen when you're listening, not be distracted by other things going on, really focusing on that listening thing. And so there are four main listening skills. The first one is attending. And attending means almost like giving, like checking attendance at the beginning of the day that teachers have to do, right? You are giving your physical, your emotional, your mental attention to that other person, to that student. That being said, you're not sitting at your desk listening to the student complain or talk about the situation that's happening. You're actually turning to them. You're orienting your body to the student. You have your face. You face the student. You don't get in their face, but you are. You get on their level, especially with little kids. The height difference with little children can be seen as almost a defensive or a defensive stance, and so getting down on their level can make it feel more communicative and more comfortable, so that they can talk to you. So the first thing, attending, giving your full attention to the situation, to the speaker who is speaking. The second one is following. When you're actively listening, you're engaged by using eye contact, not looking at other things around the room or other things that are happening, and using non-intrusive gestures. So things like, nodding your head, saying, okay, asking, not asking question after question after question and not letting them talk, because that's not the point of listening, but you're, maybe trying to understand something further. Tell me more about this kind of thing. You're kind of giving them assurance, I guess you could say, that you are tracking along with them as you're talking and as you're listening. Things like having your arms crossed is not a very good sign that you want to be there or that you're listening. So maybe having your arms crossed, or down by your side or in another way, to make them feel like you're understanding and you're following along with what they're talking about. The third thing is reflecting. And this is a thing that I feel in myself when I was teaching and had these kind of situations and conversations that I often neglected, is probably this part of reflecting. And really all that is you're paraphrasing the feelings of the other person. You're paraphrasing the situation, using the feelings of another person. So I have an example listed here, and it says, like, if a student says, I hate my teacher, they're mean, she makes us do so much work, that a situation, something like that, right? What you say as the teacher is, okay, so I hear what you're paraphrasing, and you're using the feelings of that person, of that student, right? So what I hear you saying is that you are upset, or you are angry, you are mad at your teacher because, you're mad because you think your teacher gives you too much work. Basically, you're rephrasing or reflecting on what they just said, so that one, they know that you're actually following along with what they're listening, step two, right? And two, you're able to rephrase it in a way that makes it sense to them as well. You're upset because of this, because of X, Y, and Z. You are sad because of this. Because this happened, you are this kind of model as you think about it. And that can be part of the conversation as well, because it makes them feel like you actually listen to them, because you're speaking back to them what they just said in another way, right? And the fourth thing is empathizing. You're identifying the feelings of the other person, and you can be doing that. Could be something as simple as nodding your head, saying okay, and again asking an infrequent question or an infrequent statement. Saying, I'm sure that you're kind of giving their feelings some sort of assurance or worth, like, oh, I'm sure that doing all that work can be really frustrating. I know that when I get a lot of work, I get very stressed and frustrated too. And empathizing with the student will really, or the person in general, really ultimately show that one, you are listening to them and really listening, because you have given them your full attention. You have tracked along with what they're saying and were able to rephrase it and say it back to them. And then you're able to connect and identify with the feelings of that person in that situation. Really shows people that you are listening. So when you are being that last step, that empathetic listener, right? You are providing and responding to the other person in such a way that it improves that mutual understanding and trust. So as you're doing this, you're actually kind of building rapport with that person, because you're able to, again, identify with their feelings and what they're experiencing. You're not being judgmental. You're not ignoring the student or just pretending to pay attention for that time being, right? That's that's not what we want, because it makes them seem like that you weren't actually listening. And so you listen to what the student is really saying and try to determine the meaning behind the words. You're going to restate the message to clarify, and then you're going to validate. So I understand why this happened or why you felt this way, but you're not agreeing with what happened after that. So for instance, in that same kind of scenario where the student said, oh, I hate my teacher, they give us too much work, you can say that, you can validate that, oh, I understand totally. Well, one, you're going to re-clarify, okay, so what I hear you saying is that you are angry because your teacher gave you so much work to do. That's that kind of that reflecting piece. You're restating that just to clarify of what they just said, so they know you're listening, right? Then you're going to validate that. Oh, I can understand why that you would be angry. I know I get angry when I have a lot of work, or I get really stressed when I have a lot of work, and that can sometimes make me angry. But you're not agreeing with the behavior that happens after that. So because the teacher made them angry, they decided to throw the pencil across the room. You're not agreeing with them throwing the pencil across the room. You're agreeing with, or you're validating, I should say, validating their perspective and validating how they feel in that moment, right? So here's a great quote from the Dalai Lama. It says, when you talk, you are only repeating what you already know, but when you listen, you may learn something new. And I think that kind of wraps up what we were just talking about with those listening skills of, like, when you listen, you might actually truly listen, I should say. When you truly listen, you might actually learn something new about the situation that you wouldn't have if you were just talking to the student and repeating, repeating what happened in your perspective only. But if you actually took the time to actually listen, you may learn something new about the situation that you weren't really aware of. They may have, many times as music educators, when students get sent to our classroom from their homeroom teacher, for instance, they may come to our classrooms with some issues and feelings and behaviors that have nothing to do with us, but we don't know what they're doing. It may represent themselves. The behaviors may represent themselves in your classroom in a variety of ways, but if you don't actually take the time to listen to what your students are feeling and experiencing, you may actually get to learn something about them that you didn't know before, or learn something about the situation that you may not have known otherwise. The student may have come to your classroom, and a student, another classmate might have hurt their feelings and they were lashing out in your classroom. It had nothing to do with you. It happened before they even came to your classroom. But if you don't take that time to actually listen and follow those steps of attending, following, reflecting, and empathizing or validating, you might miss out on that piece. And that's why I wanted to share this quote with you.